Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the world of Trans Am, the oldest road racing series in the United States, some 54 years of age. And today we are turning a new chapter for our series as we go into cyberspace and take on the world of esports. I'm Jonathan Green, and along with Ben Sissel, we will be guiding you through our first ever e-race, and somewhat appropriately, it is at Laguna Seca in California, one of America's most iconic circuits. A special thanks to Talk Esports, UMG, Assetto Corsa for developing the format for Trans Am, and it will continue to develop as we go on. We are currently in qualifying, and that gives me time to introduce Ben. Ben, looking forward to this, but it's going to be interesting. There are lots of rules, and they've got to obey them.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Simple rules. Each driver is piloting an equally prepared C7 Corvette set up to mimic a TA1 car. 2 races. Race 1 is 14 laps, then a 90-second reset. We reverse the grid in that reset with the top 10 finishers going to the back of the starting grid. Race 2 is 14 laps, just like the first race. Damage is on and will reset after each race. Each driver is allowed only 5 shortcuts out of the track limits before being penalized, and Darren and Jens will be the race directors of this race and can at any time serve a driver penalty. Back to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we've got damage on, so you will see potentially cars hitting each other accidentally, but that will slow the cars down, and as you say, there will be penalties for those that continue to break the rules, and that will add weight to the following round. This is an 8-round championship. We start here at Laguna Seca, and we hope in real life to join you in Monterey, California, one of my favorite places to go. Ooh, somebody going off there a little bit wide in qualifying as we head through Rainy Curve. Fantastic onboard pictures with one of the favorites, Tyler Casera. But we've got drivers from all over the United States and even Hawaii. Roger Eagleton phoning it in, if you will, from Honolulu, Hawaii. And he too was one of our pre-season favorites. We did have a pre-season pilot race at Lime Rock. That was won by Cameron Lawrence, another one of the favorites. Roger Eagleton was in the top 5. Tyler Casera, who has a fantastic rig. We'll talk about some of those setups in a moment. But currently you're watching qualifying with 6 minutes and 52 seconds to go. Really looking forward to this. And like I said, we've got drivers from all over the United States, from Las Vegas, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and as I mentioned earlier, Hawaii. These are all professional race drivers. Would you say Ben, bar one, being Mr. Archer?
Yeah, I say it's safe to call him a non-professional race car driver, but he has probably more experience in a sim and on track than anybody. He is Trans Am royalty. His dad is Bobby Archer. His uncle is Tommy Archer. He's been at the racetrack probably since before he was born. And I know we spoke to him yesterday, and his dad, Bobby, he said, was right behind him talking in his ear, coaching him along. So I expect him to do really well. He's really fast in these sims, and he's going to give, hopefully, Tyler Casera a run for his money.
Well, that's tough for Dylan Archer. He's in Keller, Texas right now, and he's racing effectively for TA Futures because his plan is to go Trans Am racing. He's been following his dad with you, Ben, at the SVRA. And talking of SVRA, wherever you're tuning in, if you're not tuning in on our SVRA or Trans Am apps, I would encourage you to download them because we'll give you all the updates of both the E-Championship and the Real Championship. We have a rescheduled Real Series, which we hope to get going later in the day. You can even see social distancing being done very well here at Laguna Seca. The boys from Scramp doing a very good job, and the new management putting Laguna Seca in top tip form for our race today. Perfect conditions high up in the hills of Monterey. We've been here all week. Ben and I did Pebble Beach golf course. I got a 66 virtually.
Yeah, you did pretty well. I lost my temper virtually and threw my putter into the pond. But we were just on board. We're following around Thomas Merrill right now, who is from Salinas, California, just over the hill. This is his home track. And he is always really fast here. He was fighting for the front in all of our practice races yesterday. So we expect to see him in the top 5 here in the qualifying.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, you'll know the names of Laguna Seca, of course. But this is a racetrack that's been here since 1957. It's one of the oldest tracks in America, and it's just perched above Monterey, California, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And we mentioned, joking aside, Pebble Beach is just around the corner. Salinas, in fact, is the area where all the grapes and tomatoes and all the fruit that the world eats is picked. So it's a really beautiful spot on the California coast and a great place to go racing. And of course, this track is famous for its infamous turn, the corkscrew. Some 6 floors down, over 130 feet. It drops right from the top of the hill, and it really is. We're approaching it now, but it's quite a death-defying piece of ground. When you look at it, actually, even on the virtual, Ben, it doesn't look as steep as we go through Rainy Curve, named after the great 3-time world champion MotoGP driver, Wayne Rainey, who lives, 3 or 4 miles away, one of my former bosses, and running Moto America, of course, with the bikes, and sure he'll be watching in today, as are, I know, the social media pods of the circuit itself. So we welcome you aboard and welcome you to Trans Am. If you're new to Trans Am, Ben, how different will it be? Because most of these guys run either Mustangs, Dodges, Corvettes, of course, but everybody's seemingly getting to grips pretty easily with this Corvette.
Yeah, and you know what? You look at the leaderboard, and there aren't many surprises. We have 6-time champion Ernie Francis Jr. in 3rd place. Josh Hurley and Tyler Cassera, who are both on VR headsets, in 1st and 2nd. JP Southern in 4th. Edward Savajian, who's always one of the fastest, and SVRA, who just joined TA2 last season and did really well. Then Dylan Archer. Thomas Merrill, who won at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca here last year in TA2, is in 7th. Nick Racino from Southern California, who has a lot of sim experience, in 8th. So there's no surprises. I think for a while, it took some of the drivers a while to get used to driving the sim. But I think after today, it looks like already our times are faster than they were yesterday. Tyler Cassera just pulled the fastest time I've ever seen. So I think they're adjusting very well, and this should be a great race.
Yeah, and of course, there's quite a lot up for grabs here because, 2 things is worth mentioning. Of all the other motor racing series, we were probably the luckiest because we've actually had a real round at Sebring at the end of February. So we've actually got one in the books already. That race won by Mike Skeen and also Thomas Merrill last year here at Laguna Seca, getting a win as well. You mentioned Ernie Francis Jr., 6-time champion at just 22 years of age in the real world. Not a big sim racer, but given that he won here at Laguna Seca by some 28 seconds last year, he'll really want to do it against the same competitors, but now on the game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he gets on in our Trans Am by Pirelli Esports Championship. Like I said, 8 rounds in all. We'll score it the same way as we do in Trans Am. So the winner of the first race getting 30 points, and also in qualifying, 3 points for pole, 2 points for 2nd place and 1 for 3rd. So points to be had. There is prize money at the end, or prizes at the end of the season, worth a lot of money. And really, really looking forward to this because it's given everybody a little bit of a distraction. And we know none of us want to be here. None of us want to be at home. But hey, if we can distract you and give you a little bit of fun and show you a little bit about our amazing world. We have 5 categories in Trans Am, Ben. And this is the GTLM Corvette we're looking at. But we have a TA class, a TA2 class. And of course, we still traditionally run the production cars as well.
Yeah, and the production cars are always a big hit because it's the cars that you can buy from the showroom. So we have the XGT class, which is like the Audi R8s and the Ferrari 458s, and then the SGT, lots of Porsches, and then the GT class is basically showroom cars with a roll cage put in and the safety measures, and it's really fun to watch. But this is really turning out well. Caceres still at the top with Hurley right behind him, and then Dylan Archer. So the 3 drivers that I really consider to be sim drivers, but also pro drivers, are right at the top, right where we expect them.
Yeah, Tyler Cassera from Manheim, Pennsylvania is a big gamer. He used to be a Miata driver. We have 1 female driver, and she's from Las Vegas. Her name, Michelle Abate. She's a great character. She's got a great sim setup too. Next level racing setup with Thrustmaster. Looking forward to seeing what she can do. If the dog keeps out of her way, she's got a chance, I reckon. She's got a beautiful Dalmatian dog, but he does like to climb up on the sim while she's racing, so that's not a good thing. I also want to mention Boris Said. Now, if you know your motor racing, you'll have watched Boris Said at the Le Mans at Daytona, NASCAR. Ooh, you name it. He's raced everything, as Boris said. He's back in Trans Am. We thought he was going to retire, but he came back out of retirement, and he has once again got together with Poncho Weaver in the real world and will be racing Trans Am. He got a second place last year at Road America. He and his son have been setting up his rig, although I believe it's pretty basic. But this is his debut in sim racing. But it's great to have the mighty Boris Said involved.
Oh, I love having Boris Said back in Trans Am. And he even mentioned yesterday in drivers meeting, which I thought was so Boris Said. He said, can we have virtual fights after the races if somebody pulls me off? And that's so Boris Said.
Still rumors that his son could be driving the car, but that really, you don't want to read everything you see on Twitter or on social media. I couldn't believe that Boris would try something like that, because Boris is an established punter, and he'll take to this like a duck to water. But I tell you what, he's going to be hard pushed. We've got about 3 or 4 drivers on the VR headsets, which some think will be an advantage, others don't. We were talking about peripheral view and what you can see. And there was a couple of guys struggling to see some of the blue flags for passing in practice and in qualifying. So it'll be interesting to see as we look down from the first corner at this beautiful track. Like I said, formed in 1957. They bought this land from the Army for some $3,000. Can you believe it? And they built it in just 60 days for $125,000. Oh, different times. Casera then, 121.5, the fastest man out there, but only a couple of tenths quicker than Josh Hurley. Archer's up there, right where he needs to be. Racino, Francis Jr., our 6-time champion from Jupiter, Florida, is in 5th place. And another famous name, Hunter Pickett, grandson of the great Greg Pickett. Now, if you don't know who Greg Pickett is, well, just show up to a Trans Am race, because he's won a Trans Am race in 5 decades. Is that right, Ben?
I think it's 6 decades.
Is it? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. He certainly raced last year.
Yeah, it must be something in that muscle milk. And then followed 7th place is Thomas Merrill, JP Southern, Edward Savagian, Cameron Lawrence, 2-time TA2 champion, did really well at Lime Rock, rounds out the top 10. It's a who's who of Trans Am here with our 27 starters in the field.